So we talk about being a nation that's for God. That's a consensus that we want to renew in this country. A big part of what we do is reestablishing that notion in our public policy and to be able to argue on the basis of public policy those certain truths.
We have been looking many years for a Sunday law to be enacted in our land, for the union of church and state to be established, and now that movement is right upon us. In darkness, in secret, behind closed doors, men in high positions have infiltrated the recesses of our free society in order to establish a new religious order. An order in which those that seek to assert the liberty of conscience will be threatened. An order once employed in the old world during the Dark Ages under papal supremacy. America, once thought to be a safe haven of civil and religious liberty, will soon speak with the voice of a dragon. Join us as we uncover the truth behind this movement in preparation for final events.
This 920-page document would usher in the most conservative executive branch in modern American history, if enacted. It's called Project 2025. Its pages offer new administrations a blueprint for executing a right-wing agenda. Former President Donald Trump has distanced himself from Project 2025.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it.
Notwithstanding, I expect you to hear 10 more times from the rally, the president, distancing himself from the left's boogeyman of Project 2025.
Yeah. And you're not worried about that?
No, I'm not worried. He's very supportive of what we do. He's been at our organization. He's raised money for our organization. He's blessed it.
Heritage does such an incredible job, and they're going to lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America. And that's coming. That's coming.
For as many times as Donald Trump tried to distance himself from Project 2025, the issue was always that Donald Trump is not someone who pays close attention to the details of policy and to policy proposals. It was always up to other people who were going to implement a lot of the things that he wanted to do or to implement their own agendas once they were empowered by him.
The president-elect tried to say repeatedly he didn't even know the people who wrote it, but he clearly does, because there are at least 6 people so far that he has named to be in his administration who authored chapters or contributed in some way to Project 2025. That includes Russ Vought. It also includes Tom Homan, who will be his border czar within the White House, John Ratcliffe to lead the CIA, as well as Brendan Carr, who wrote a chapter for Project 2025. Trump has named him to lead the Federal Communications Commission.
The people who wrote Project 2025 are writing down what it is they want to do, and those are likely to be people who could then serve in Trump's administration.
As mentioned in the previous segment, President-elect Donald Trump is not one that pays particular attention to policies and policy proposals. This is left to his administration. This point is confirmed in the following segment, as implied when Russ Vought, Trump's newly re-elected OMB director, acknowledges the fact that the Heritage Foundation's policies, process, and politics are ready for implementation once the president takes office.
Turning now to another side of Trump's cabinet. For the Office of Management and Budget, the president-elect has chosen Russell Vought. Vought previously led that office for part of Trump's first term. He is also a co-author of Project 2025, the controversial Heritage Foundation blueprint for a second Trump term.
Now, OMB, us wonks know that's the Office of Management and Budget, but what exactly does that agency do?
Anything that's a whole of government execution, this is really the management tag, anything that's whole of government involving multiple cabinet agencies, we would have a hand in making sure the president's prerogatives are being championed through the bureaucracies.
Well, it's that experience, along with some other of your attributes, that excites me that you're such a vital part of Project 2025, which is a conservative movement-wide effort to prepare the next president, whoever he or she ends up being. And I'll let you talk about the real nuts and bolts of that. But how does the promise of that thus far, I mean, we're still a year and a half out, compare with your experience in the first years of the Trump administration, which was well-meaning with a wonderful leader, but I don't think the movement was really prepared to prepare him for what he had to confront.
So what we're trying to do in this project is to say, let's take all the know-how that we have and build it into the actual plans so that an individual can show up on day one and do it and have the policy, the process, and the politics all figured out.
The basis of the plan is public. You can see that at project2025.org. There are parts of the plan that we will not share with the left. The executive orders, the rules and regulations, just like a good football team, we don't want to tip off our playbook to the left.
But the real issue is that Donald Trump himself is going to leave a lot of the governance of the federal government to other people. And this is those people, a lot of those people saying, here's what I want to do with that power.
In the following segment, we will see clearly Russ Vought's aims and objectives as reflected in Project 2025's policies and executive orders to shape public policies with a Christian worldview.
And one of those correctives is that we're a nation under God. So we talk about being a nation that's for God. That's a consensus that we want to renew in this country, that we have religious liberty, but it cannot come from this notion that a country isn't understanding the reality that it has to obey God, and there is only one true God, and that is Jesus Christ our Lord.
You hit upon the first priority of our organization is to regain a notion in this country, a consensus that we're not a secular country, that we are a Christian nation as founded, and that should be shared by everyone, even if they have religious liberty for another faith, but that to the extent that you don't have that consensus, you have a culture and a nation that just disintegrates. So I want to make sure that we can say we're a Christian nation, and my viewpoint is mostly that I would probably be Christian nationism. That's pretty close to Christian nationalism. Can we, if we're going to have legal immigration, can we get people that actually believe in Christianity? Is that something?
So that is a big part of what we do, is reestablishing that notion in our public policy, and to be able to argue on the basis of public policy those certain truths. And that truth comes from Revelation. And that doesn't mean that everyone agrees with it, but can we at least have Christians in the public policy realm that argue from their perspective that they hold, as opposed to kind of this Christian secularism.
And all I'm saying is that we're meant to be a Christian nation. We should be a Christian nation. We should provide religious liberty for everyone in this country to practice their faith, but that the Constitution, the system doesn't work. Western civilization does not work without the underpinnings of a Judeo-Christian worldview that is the bedrock for all of our laws. So it is not unnatural for Christians to be a part of the political sphere, the public square, and to say, this is what I believe, this is the bedrock for which I believe it, and to have it reflected in our laws, in just policies.
We love individual rights. Individual rights flow from a creator, but individual rights have to be understood within healthy laws and just societies.
And that's one of the reasons we sent the Center for Renewing up, because we looked at the last 40 years of our country, even on the conservative right, and said, you know what, we are godless. We are largely secular. We think that the economy alone should be the decider of all of decisions. And that ultimately is not an inspiring worldview to rally the country to. That's how we have lost our country, is when the right, the people who believe in God, believe that God is the measure of all things and not man is the measure of all things, which is really the continental divide between right and left. When you have the right unwilling to articulate what it means to be a nation under God, that is a corrective that you have to emphasize a little bit, even if it gets you called names. Go into the public sphere, go into the public square with love for your community and your nation, and do your best to have the laws reflect what we know to be true.
In the following segment, Kevin Roberts and the other proponents of Project 2025 outline in detail a key policy they seek to implement. to codify the quote-unquote Christian Sabbath on Sunday through labor laws.
What's that cause? Our recent explication, or one recent explication you might have seen, you might have even signed, called for, quote, restoring to our nation a proper public orientation toward the virtues of patriotism and courage, honor and loyalty, religion and wisdom, congregation and family, man and woman, the Sabbath and the sacred, and reason and justice.
Taking us well down the road to theocracy was a huge feature of Project 2025, and it did it in so many different ways. So they have provisions in there to effectively codify the Christian Sabbath on Sunday by penalizing employers, forcing them to pay overtime if an employee is asked to work on the Christian Sabbath.
Today I had on a very dear friend, someone who's been, I think, a mentor and really helped shepherd me into life in DC in a pretty big way. We had on Jonathan Berry, who's a partner with the Boyd & Gray and Associates law firm. Conversation largely inspired by this here document. I'm holding it up on the YouTube video. What it is, though, is the Department of Labor and Related Agencies chapter in Pillar 1 of the Heritage 2025 Presidential Transition Project Policy Book.
The proposal that's in our book is amending the basic federal overtime law, Fair Labor Standards Act, to require that overtime be paid for all work done on the Sabbath.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't think I don't think Congress has the authority to mandate like a national closing on the Sabbath. That was always a state decision to do that. But let me add, it was always a state decision to do that.
The Bible prophesied in the last days, America, the lamb-like beast, will speak as a dragon. In this final segment, we will take a glimpse into the mindset of those behind this movement and the ferocity in which they seek to achieve their agenda.
But the notion that we're going to solve this by just going along with the way we've done it for the last 40, 50 years, and our side thinking this is, we just win this court case, everything will be successful. No, we are ready with the types of battle plans that are necessary to save the country.
What we're doing here is building not just for 2025, Steve, but for the next century in the United States. And that's why MSNBC and that history professor have lost their ever-loving minds, because they've never seen the political right be this organized, this focused, this rational about taking power and actually using it appropriately, as the Constitution says.
We're not going to save our country without a little confrontation. And if you're not willing to count the cost, I don't want to serve with you. I really do not want to serve with you in government if you have not been willing to acclimate yourselves to the possibility that you will have to spend a night in jail, that you will have to tell your family you may not see me for a while. That is the only mentality that we will save our country. And when we all start understanding it, that courage is contagious, we will have an army of people that are ready for the conflict that is coming with regard to what the left will throw at us and the types of policies and proposals, all constitutional, that are necessary for us to stand in the breach.
America cannot and will not survive. Otherwise, our time calls for an American crusade, yes, a holy war for the righteous cause of human freedom. And if we don't crusade a holy war, a righteous holy war for freedom, we're not going to save it.
I come full circle in this response and just want to encourage you with some substance that we are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
The Sunday movement is now making its way in darkness. The leaders are concealing the true issue. And many who unite in this movement do not themselves see whither the undercurrent is tending. Its professions are mild and apparently Christian, but when it shall speak, it will reveal the spirit of the dragon. The time is not far distant when the world will be compelled to worship on Sunday, which is the mark of the beast. The Sabbath will be the greatest test of loyalty, for it is the point of truth especially controverted. When the final test shall be brought to bear upon men, then the line of distinction will be drawn between those who serve God and those who serve him not. Jesus said, "If ye love me, keep my commandments, for blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. Therefore, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. For more information on the topics discussed in this video, please visit our website at www.prophesyagain.org.